Well, I gotta say that spring has pretty much slapped me in the face. I feel like we were dealing with snow and freezing weather, then all of a sudden it switched into spring and everything is greening up and bursting out of the soil, and now I feel like I am behind. I will say that we are having a warm spring this year. It's very wet, but it is very warm, which is really nice because I've been able to go outside and do something in the garden almost every day. Now, I take my homestead in baby steps. I have just learned over the years that if you just make one baby step every single day from spring until fall, you will eventually get the projects done. And I apply that to just about everything I do, including food preservation. So a recent project I did was pasta, egg pasta. So I recently saw a YouTube video actually. So this is not my recipe. I will give the link below of the recipe that I used that made a large batch of egg pasta. I was able to use 18 duck eggs, which I was so excited about. I will say, I think I had some user error with the recipe initially. So I made the dough the day before this. I mixed up all my eggs, but I ended up using about double the amount of flour that the recipe called for, and I ended up with this very sticky dough. So I was getting frustrated. I ended up just sticking the dough in a bowl, letting it sit overnight in the fridge, and then I got it back out this day. It actually worked out in the end because as I was folding and kneading it, like you see here, I was able to fold enough flour into it to where it could be stiff enough to go through the actual cutter. So in the end, it did work out, but this was actually quite a project. Next time I do this, I'm definitely gonna just cut the recipe in half because this took me all day to press and cut the pasta. And of course, I didn't really choose a day that I had nothing else to do. I was also trying to get other stuff done too. Now, I'm not a pasta expert by no means, but the process is quite simple. You pretty much just make your dough. Now, I obviously have the KitchenAid attachment, and I just have the spaghetti and the fettuccine size cutters. I did fettuccine with these egg noodles because they are bigger and they are less fragile when they're bigger noodles, which I will show you in just a minute. But you make your dough, you put it through the kneader first until it's nice and smooth, and that is the tool that you will use to make it thin. And then the instruction booklet will tell you how thin, like what level to put it on. For fettuccine, it's 3, so I just went to the 3rd knob, and that was the thinness that it needed. And then I switch the header for the fettuccine cutter, and this, you do have to be quite precise with this because you only get one chance to cut your noodles. But it is quite easy. I mean, pasta making, especially with an electric pasta press, is so easy. It's just a little time consuming. I mean, it's not the fastest food project you'll ever do in your life, but I guess canning too takes some time too. Now, this pasta recipe is for long-term storage. So I first hung these up onto hangers to get their shape. This will make them straight, and it actually is easier to put them in the jars later. And then after only a couple of hours, they will actually start to fall off the hanger. And then you can just put them on some plates, and not plates. You need cookie sheets or a pizza pan or something big. I mean, this is a lot of pasta. But I just let them dry for a couple of days, and then I put them into jars. And then ideally, you would vacuum seal the jars. Now, the vacuum sealer that I have for the jar doesn't work. I have tried every single trick in the trade. I cannot get that thing to work. But we have now, since it's now spring, turned our boiler off. So now our basement is really cold, like 55 degrees. So it's not refrigerator or anything, but it is like a big cooler down there. So I stuck all my jars down in my basement, and they can just kind of sit down there. The recipe says it's supposed to last for about 6 months. I personally am not worried about these going bad, especially down in my basement where it is really cold. But they are in jars, unsealed, downstairs. These are the noodles that we are going to eat first before any of those boxed or bag noodles that we have. Now, another project that I have been working on is organizing my food in particular and trying to get the things that are old out of my stinking pantry, okay? I have jam from 2021. If we have not ate it by now, it is time to get rid of those. So I have to preface this because my initial plan was to turn these old jams into fruit powders. That did not work out. I don't know if it's the gelatin in the jam, but they just do not dehydrate. Maybe freeze drying. If you have a freeze dryer, maybe that would work better, but I cannot get it to dehydrate properly. But what I did figure out is that they make delicious fruit roll-ups. Now, my husband did correct me to say that these are actually fruit by the foots, but we call them fruit roll-ups. They're just little fruit leathers that I roll in parchment paper and then cut into smaller chunks. Now here I used my raspberry preserves. I did these last summer, so these are not old. This is not old jam or anything like that, but I wanted to see if the raspberries tasted good. The kids love them, even with the seeds in them. I think the next time I might strain out the seeds just to make it a smoother, more uniform looking fruit leather, but it did turn out really good. All you do is you just take your jam or your fruit preserve, put it into these silicone mats. They did not come with a dehydrator, but you can just find them on Amazon. You just dehydrate them until you can tell that they are these tacky looking fruit leathers. They're not dry by no means. They're definitely sticky. That's why I used the parchment paper and I rolled them up and cut them into chunks. And then just like this, you can see that they are like little homemade fruit by the foots. And they just peel the parchment paper back and eat them bite by bite. My kids can only eat about a half of a roll up, so I could have made them smaller. They are quite sweet. Now I am kind of working out the bugs with this recipe, turning jam into fruit leathers. It's really not that hard, but I will post it on the blog when I finalize how I like to do it. I just put all my chunks into this half-gallon jar, and then I actually stored them in the fridge to make them last longer. And the fridge, the cold, helps with the stickiness because these are quite tacky and sticky, kind of like store-bought fruit by the foot. But the fridge definitely helps with the stickiness, and they will last a little bit longer than a week or so in my fridge. Now, the very last thing that I have been doing this throughout my whole kitchen, but is organizing, not just deep cleaning, but organizing. And this open shelf corner thing has become my kitchen dump. And it was in such dire need of reorganizing. And I did deep clean it, but in rearranging. Which for me, this is more than just making sure my house looks pretty. As you can tell, before I rearranged all this looked like a dumping station, because it was. I like to do this because honestly, we have a small kitchen and it's actually a dine-in kitchen. I don't have a separate dining room. It's all one room. So I really need to keep this place in check, especially since I cook from scratch all day long, every day. I mean, of course, I take some shortcuts here and there, but this is not a home where we eat out or get fast food or anything like that. We definitely make as much as we can at home. So doing stuff like this is really important to me, and I wanted to do it. This was pasta day. I did this before I started pasta, but I wanted to make sure I got this accounted for before I got too busy doing other stuff outside also. So when it comes to my kitchen, now my kitchen is always kind of changing, but it is function with the pretty. So I do like to look at pretty things. I like to set up my house in a pretty way or anything. I'm not some interior designer, but I do like to look at cozy spaces. So I did a huge overhaul in this. I took a lot of stuff down. I moved that short little bookcase away, open up that corner a little bit more. I put my homeschooling stuff away, and it just looks so much better. And now every time I walk by it, I'm like, okay, the kitchen is okay. Even though the dishes might be stacked up or the compost bucket needs to be taken out, it is okay. This was very good. I obviously needed to clean this anyway. It is much more functional now. I love walking past it now. And for the summer season, this is gonna work for me. That's all I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.